Hi, and welcome everyone today to today's session. We're really excited to welcome both Ben and Rob here. I'm just going to give a brief introduction and then I'll hand it over to our speakers for today's session. So this is the third session of our AI in Education series. And this week's talk is entitled Adopting AI into Your Everyday Work. It's being given by University of Liverpool's Ben McGrae and Rob Lindsay. And it's my great pleasure to welcome Ben and Rob today. Both Ben and Rob hail from the Centre of Innovation in Education at the University of Liverpool, and that's a unit that works with academic colleagues and programme teams to support the enhancement of the student experience through effective curriculum design. I had the pleasure of working with Ben during my time at Liverpool. Ben has extensive experience advising and supporting staff on a number of technologies. He supports the use of pedagogies in the college's virtual learning environment, e-portfolios, polling technologies, online collaborations, and reusable learning objects. He has supported a number of institutional projects, including their electronic management of assessment system, lecture capture, their VLE review, and the establishment of a VLE baseline. In addition to his technical support, Ben also assists staff in implementing the hallmarks of their university's educational strategy curriculum 2021. So I'm delighted to have Ben with us here today, and we're also delighted to welcome Rob to this session. To my misfortune, I only had the pleasure of meeting Rob after I had left Liverpool, but since having met him, I can confidently say that he's going to bring a wealth of experience and knowledge to today's talk. Rob has an MA in Academic Practice, an MA in Philosophy, a PG Cert in ODL, and is a Fellow of the Advanced HE. Rob is a digital education and generative AI specialist, focusing on blended technologies with pedagogies to make learning accessible, engaging, and innovative. His work spans generative AI in education, immersive digital learning environments, and strategies for bolstering student engagement through collaboration and co-creation. Rob also serves as the chair of the Generative AI in Education Working Group, and in this position, he helps to guide the ethical and effective interrogation of AI across teaching, learning, research, and administrative practices across the university. Rob supports staff through educational offerings that focus on generative AI in education, multimedia production, curriculum design, accessibility, well-being, and online and virtual collaborative spaces. In recent years, Rob and the rest of the Inclusive Curriculum Development team won the 2023 Staff Team Award for outstanding contributions to equality, diversity, and inclusion at the university. And Rob, along with his co-authors, Sanders and Colby, have published a chapter, Pedagogy and Policy in a Brave New World, in Routledge's book of Using Generative AI Effectively in Higher Education. So I can say we're thrilled to have you with us today, Rob, and I'm sure we're in safe hands with both Ben and Rob today. Now, before handing over to Ben and Rob, I would like to ask that attendees do not add a digital assistant to the session unless they've already received prior approval from the organizing team. Just to let you know that any unapproved digital assistants will be removed from today's talk. And so with that, we just want to remind attendees that today's session will be recorded and made publicly available after everything today. And so without further delay, I'll now hand over to Ben and Rob for today's session.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Catherine. What an intro. I think I need to shorten my bio there. Just apologies for having that all in there, but it's really a great pleasure to be here with Ben today. Ben, do you want to say hello as well?
Yeah, hi everyone. What an introduction that was. I don't think I've ever been introduced like that. So yeah, thank you for having us, and hopefully you'll find this interesting today. But I'll let Rob kick things off to start.
We'll get kicked off. So today we're focusing on the theme of adopting AI into your everyday work. So everyone's sort of familiar with AI, the growing use case of it. We're going to keep the slides to an absolute minimum because what we'd like to do really is talk you through some of the processes that we use at Liverpool And this graph here, or this chart here, really just outlines the growing influence of AI and generative AI, with a slight distinction between the two. But actually, the areas that we're looking at integrating it includes teaching, learning, research, operational, institutional support, external partnerships. Really, we've seen the growth of the technology throughout our university, and our role within the Centre for Innovation is to support that through colleagues and supporting staff teams to then support the student experience. So Ben and I are well placed just to talk about this, but we're by no means, the most expertise in the room. Everyone here is a collective expertise, and I think really we're all learning at the same time as we go, but with different techniques and technologies and support. So we very much welcome all input, all feedback. If there's difference of opinion, please put it in the chat. We'd love to talk it through. What a technology for bringing to the front different discussions around sustainability. So we're aware that there's a sort of a clash there between our sustainable strategies and actually the increasing use of the technology. And we go through all this sort of discussion around topics of data control as well, and privacy. We are open to all those conversations as well, and we'll show you some resources where we really go into those in a bit more detail. And also ethics as well, the ethical considerations around that. I've lost my data icon there. I don't know where it's gone or why it's doing that, but that's enough talking really around the theory. We'll get into that more if you'd like to outside of this conversation. But today, what we really want to do is talk you through your needs and requirements and what it is you'd like to do with the technology in your work. So if you want to open up the Padlet using that link, and Ben, have you got the Padlet to hand? I wonder if we could put that in the chat as well.
I have, yeah. Let me get the link. It might look a little bit different to what Rob's got because it's the full URL, but here it is in the chat for those of you who haven't seen it yet.
And if we could get a thumbs up on that in the chat, just to let us know that that's worked for you as well. Just one will do, and we'll carry on from there. But what I'll do is I'll talk you through that Padlet. Right, we've got some thumbs up coming there.
Yeah.
So just to get the Padlet open so you have an idea of what you're looking at, we asked a few questions ahead of the session about how people are using AI, how they'd like to use AI, and the support and questions and comments that they might want to include. And the reason we've done that is because whenever we do sessions like this, what we'd like to do really is tailor it to the common needs, the common want, and rather than us trying to tell you how we think you should be using it, it's actually supporting you in your own use cases. And what we found was there's quite a lot of requests for the basics within this. So a lot of people that said they're not using it. So this session is tailored probably more towards those people than the more advanced users. And there were some advanced use cases within the conversation there. And we'll pick those out another time, if you like. Ben and I are always open to these sort of sessions. We love workshops. We love working with academic and professional colleagues to help them learn to use the technology. But the reason that I've sort of flagged up the Padlet here is what you'll find is the support and resources column. So some people can find this a bit overwhelming today. It's too much at once. They don't like it. They want to keep it simple. And we've tried to keep it as simple as we can, but also so that we can work through it in a methodical way and develop a bit of competency around the basics, then lead into some more advanced use cases. So please feel free to add to this Padlet. A lot of the requests were for a list of free to access platforms. So if you go under the support and resources column, you'll see this PDF here. Click on that. And what you'll get from that, Ben and I have compiled a list of the resources we're going to talk through today with a link to them. All of these are free. So we are aware there's much more extensive paid offerings, but in the climate we're in, especially in Liverpool at the minute, there's budget restrictions across the sector. We're looking to do more with less, as the favorite efficiency quote is. And actually, the nice thing about generative AI is there's a lot of available tools that are not requiring a subscription or a payment. So have a little look down that list. Do that now or do it after, because we'll be using these as we go. So hopefully you'll see some of them that take an interest in you. But what I thought we'd do today anyway is kick off with a couple of examples as we walk through. So the theme today was everyday work. And really, as we've seen, generative AI within Liverpool at least is covering so many areas of work. It's academic development, professional services staff, it might be student support. So really try and think about this today in your own context and how what we show you might apply to you. There are different platforms available, as we've outlined in that document there. One that you may be familiar with in your institutions is Copilot. Now, Copilot works very well within Edge browser if you have that. This is our institutionally supported platform at Liverpool. And of course, what that means is really no one's actually using it, which is ironic. We try and point staff in this direction, but actually, I think a preference, Ben, for you and I is ChatGPT. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think Copilot, it just has a few limitations that ChatGPT just has gone on leaps and bounds in terms of what you get back in return and what you can actually do with it. So yeah, we do need to do a bit more work, don't we, here at Liverpool around using Copilot maybe with the VLE or other tools, but we'll come to that bridge when we need to.
Yeah. And Copilot, all of these tools are very similar in that they run on different models in the background that are slight tweaks of each other, large language models. We won't go into the technical side today. We just want to go through actually how you come to use them. The prompt box, very basic, but that's where you put your instructions in. And the only reason I'm sort of showing Copilot to kick us off with is because for us, it does work with the VLE alongside it. So if you are working with your virtual learning environment, Copilot, the button will be in the top right there. And what you can do is ask questions of the content on the page itself. So I could say, what is this page about? And that works for staff and students. So actually, if we can point students to use this as well, it's a nice way of then engaging with academic and educational content using the generative AI system on the right-hand side. But that's about all I'm going to do with Copilot today, because as I've said with Ben, we are probably favoring ChatGPT. So I'm going to bring that up now and talk through a first example. And the first thing I would advise people to do that haven't used ChatGPT before with a free account is go to your data settings under here, settings, data controls there, and you want to turn that off, improve the model for everyone. By doing that, what you're ensuring is the data you're putting into this isn't going beyond your use case. It's not training the generative AI model further. And again, whenever you're using these technologies, we would ask you to consider the nature of the data that you're actually using with it. So we would advise strongly against personal, confidential, sensitive data. Have a check with your institutional data controller, what they think is acceptable. You don't want to sort of be stepping out of line early on with input and student information or anything that may end up in a breach of, data privacy laws or protection. So that's just a generic bit of advice there. The first example we're going to kick off with is we're going to take a image, and this is why I like ChatGPT. It does work in Copilot, but what I'm going to do is paste an image into the system, into the platform. So the image, I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but it's actually it's a number of recipe items for a meal. And people that use ChatGPT may not realize you can do this, but if you've got a set of ingredients at home, you can actually take a picture of them and ask for a recipe. And the reason I'm doing this as a sort of introductory item is because I think it gives you a very nice indication of where the multi-modality of the platform is now. So what it's going to do is take a picture, and I can very simply ask it to create a recipe from these ingredients. Now, not relevant to your day-to-day work beyond having breakfast or your evening dinner, but actually it's just an example to kick us off with the idea around prompt literacy. So I've got a token bottle of Guinness in there. Apologies if that's appropriation, but Ben and I both like Guinness as well. And what we've got there then is a nice Guinness beef stew. So what that's done is it's taken an image, I've asked for a recipe, and it's given me that. Now, prompt literacy is the idea that when we tweak our prompts, we're actually going to get more from the tools than we would get if we didn't know how to ask the right questions. And asking questions is an important part of the actual use of using these tools. So that was a very simple prompt. What I can do is expand on that extensively. And this is just to give you the idea that whatever you're putting into it, if you put something good in, you'll get something good out. That's one of the sort of key saying, garbage in, garbage out. But actually, you can refine everything. So now my prompt is not only create a recipe, but create a recipe from these ingredients, take the meat out and make it vegetarian, focus on a low sodium diet, because that might contextualize to my situation, give me a shopping list, outline the steps. I've got another context that my oven's not working, give me a follow-up dish from the leftovers, and then tell me what I need to buy. And actually all of that is much more advanced than that very quick, give me a recipe. And that idea that actually, if you're using these, the more you put into this contextual information, the more you tell it and the more you want from it, the more you'll get back that's relevant to the work you're doing. So if you're working on an admin process and you've got a schedule, give it the timeline, give it the days, give it the resources, give it the cost, give it as much as you're happy to share with it to then get back from it a much more extensive and, useful output. So here I've now got a shopping list. I've got my liquids. I've got my main dish, vegetarian, cooking on an air fryer because my oven doesn't work. I've got my leftover dish. I've got how to do the leftovers, and I've got a printable version if I want it. And another quick tip that people don't always realize is anything within ChatGPT can be output to Word very quickly. So all I do for that is say export to an accessible Word document. And immediately I'm thinking, right, you know, if I'm drafting a report, which I saw some of you were doing within the Padlet, some people are writing, you know, session plans, things like that. You don't have to just do it within here and then copy paste it and format it. You can very quickly get that into an accessible Word document that you can download. Here we are, I've got my Word document, and this is on the free account as well. My Word document appears, and now I've got that. So if you are drafting reports and using it within the program itself to do that, and you want that to then fit within Word, that's very easy to do so. You know, that's a much more universal document. You see, I've got my headings, they work there, my leftover dishes. I can take out the emojis if I'm not happy with them. I can ask it for UK English. I can tweak that as I need, depending on how I'm going to use it. But the main point of that was really just to demonstrate how I might create a resource and then get it into a Word format. I can also reformat, so I could say produce this as a table. And that way I'm sort of retaking content that I've got already and repurposing it into different formats. So it might be something that you want to make a lot clearer visually for you to work through with a checklist or similar. This will work across any content type that you're using. So this is a recipe here, but as Ben will show in a minute, it works with module overviews, program designs, you know, curriculums. That may have just put that into a table there. And then one more thing I'm going to show within this sort of format is if you are drafting something here and you're in the ChatGPT environment, not many people realize that there's the option for a canvas tool down here. If you put canvas, what that will do is edit almost as if it's a Word document. So I'm just going to give it a generic prompt just to show you the canvas window pop up. But what that will then do is redraft my content here. And as you'll see, it's now appeared in this sort of main window with a sidebar here. And what I can do from that is look for comments and ask to sort of track changes. So I can say highlight where ingredients may be tricky. I'll spell tricky on. And what it should do, hopefully, is within the actual document on the right, it will then sort of flag them up. There we are. I can see that it's flagging these up now. So I'm tracking changes. So if you imagine you've got a report or a document you want to make tweaks to without redrafting the whole thing, have a look at that. And it gives you this inline comment. And what it's doing is giving me the chance to apply a change. So I don't make an automatic change. I can consider it. So I'm going to do that. I can't get Bailey's. The shop's closed. I've only got a corner shop open. Let's get rid of them. It'll take them out and redraft it. Very quick idea there. There we are. Bay leaves usually found. It's given me a, you know, optional tag. It's made a quick change to it. And as we go through this, we're going to try and demonstrate quite a few things, aren't we, Ben? So please feel free to pop up any questions you have as we go in the chat. We'll pick them up as we see them and we'll try and answer them as we go. So I'm going to show you one more thing within this sort of area. I'm going to start a new chat here. And that's, again, just around the image use. So that was a sort of an example from at home that could be applied to different concepts. Another useful thing, if you've got handwritten notes or you see a slide or you see something with text that you really like, for example, a poster, I'm going to use a handwritten note here. You can very quickly extract text. So if you've got lots of notes handwritten in a notebook that you'd like to digitize, you know, no one wants to use a scanner anymore because then you just have an image that's not very accessible. What I can do is extract the text from my handwritten note here that I've just taken as an example. And very quickly, you'll see, right, abstract research suggests, and if you can see, that's quite small, sorry, but abstract research suggests. What it's done is taken my written text out and given me a digital version of it. So again, it's that idea that it will work with images. It can work with eventually video that will come through. It'll be able to analyze video on different plans and audio. It'll be able to pull out that information. And that is something, Ben, isn't it, that we find quite useful in our day-to-day work. So we might have a flip chart that we've used in a, you know, curriculum design session where everyone's putting nice ideas on. We'll just take a picture of it, extract it, and it saves anyone having to do that, you know, burdensome task of handwriting notes digitally.
Yeah.
So
it's great for accessibility as well. We've had students, haven't we, who've said, why isn't there a transcript or a sort of written down document in a sort of accessible format, and some of our staff have used this to try and make their resources more accessible, which is great. We've got Blackboard Ally on our VLE, our VLE's Canvas, so that sort of generates a score to see how accessible a document is with a percentage. So a lot of our staff are using that as an alternative format. Yeah, it's going quite well so far.
yeah. And just to give you a summary, that handwritten note, the reason I picked that one is because it says that actually by handwriting notes, we retain information, or some of us do. I certainly do, more so than perhaps just reading or listening. You know, I like to write things down. If I do it on a computer, I don't seem to remember it as much as when I've digitally, handwritten it. So yeah, first two examples. Ben, I'll hand across to you. But any questions? If this resonates with people, let us know. Please give us some comments in the chat, because, we'll answer them as we go. But Ben, yeah, you're up now with the next bit.
Yeah, thanks, Rob, and it's made me hungry for pie as well, which isn't great at this time, but I'll plow on and wait till afterwards. But yeah, so what we want to do now is just show you some examples of how it's being used in sort of our context within education. I'm assuming most of you are working in an education background, so I've just got a few examples. The first one was around sort of designing a lesson plan or some resources around some data or some content. Now, the Padlet board that you've all got access to, we can download that as a PDF. So I'm just going to grab the prompt so I'm not having to type it later on. And I'll go to ChatGPT and I'll just hide yourselves there. So that plus button, which Rob's been using to upload the images, you can search your computer on here and sort of bring the document on, which it's loading on here. So this PDF is basically all of the comments that you've all provided on the Padlet board, and then I'll throw this prompt on there so I'm not typing it out. So all it's doing here is it's asking to analyze the Padlet board and design a workshop based on common challenges and focusing on improving staff AI literacy. So it is loading the work here. If you do struggle with ChatGPT in terms of navigating, normally that arrow will appear if there's more stuff that's appeared. So I'm just going to scroll down slightly. So it's given me, you can see there's some bullet points and outlines, which obviously I can probably copy and paste these into a PowerPoint or even a lesson plan on Word. So it's sort of throwing them in here. There's a workshop outline as well with timings. So it's all the stuff very similar to what Rob was doing with the recipe, but in this way it's creating sort of recipe for this workshop in here. So what's quite nice with ChatGPT is it never used to have this sort of recommendation of what to do next. It's what Rob mentioned about that sort of prompt literacy and the prompt engineering and knowing what to put in next. So I can put on here something again like, can you provide me with slides, PowerPoints, slides, and a lesson plan in Word or something like that. And then obviously I'll probably go through all this stuff now and provide it a bit further. So there's the lesson plan just getting generated, again with timings, and hopefully I'll get the download link at the end, which then I can tweak. I'm not set on what the AI is producing here. I can start to adapt that, start to interrogate it. If there's something like a small group task, I can maybe swap that out for something else or ask more about what I should do more on the activity, what is Mentimeter or Padlet and things like that. So I don't think it's generated that PowerPoint there, but anyway, I'll just move on to the next one. So the next one was around data analysis. So I've got two things I wanted to cover. One was more around, so we get a lot of staff who have to go through like revalidation or of their modules or their programs. So they have to align it to the university's education strategy. So Catherine mentioned it before in the intro that we had something called Strategy 2021, but there's a new one called Liverpool Curriculum Framework. Not to bore you with the details, but it brings things like AI and sustainability more into it. So what I've got is, again, I'll grab that prompt just so I'm not typing it, but I've got in my files area just a couple of files there. Let's do a new chat. I've got a module spec from someone from a physics 202, and I've got our education strategy. I won't open those up just so you're not getting bored of seeing them. They're just standard documents that you can download. So in here, what it's going to do is I'm just asking it what changes do I need to make to align my module, which it'll hopefully pick that up with the framework. So again, it used to be in ChatGPT, you had to be very specific about what you wanted it to read, but since about a year ago, it's become a lot more sort of intelligent than knowing what you're asking for. So in here, it's saying, okay, knows there's a module, there's a framework, and it's saying on here, okay, what do we need to do? So education of students' experience, strengthen the research connection in there, include more employability skills, more digital and flexible learning as well. So more videos, interactive tools. So it's given me more in there. Basically, these headers are part of our education strategy. So it's sort of digesting what's from the module spec and pulling these out. So this saves a lot of time. Sometimes we do like module workshops with people, and it can be like an all-day thing, or if people have pushed for time, they can only spare like an hour or two. If we can upload these as a starting point, then we can normally pull this out of ChatGPT and then start working on it together, whether that's through Word or PowerPoint. And again, it's asking me for that sort of further part. The table mapping might be quite nice, so I'll ask for that. So I'll put yes. Please provide the table mapping. And hopefully we should see more of a diagram. So it's not just text. You've seen the emojis appear on the headers, but it is good at sort of creating sort of tables and visual prompts. If it doesn't do it on this, the next prompt I've got for the next task, which is some survey data, you'll hopefully be able to see that in more detail. So it's thinking about it. I'll only give it a few more seconds because I don't want to waste your time having a look at this. There we go. So we've got a sort of spreadsheet in Excel. It's taken on those sorts of main headers from our strategy, and yeah, come on, let's bring this bigger. And then I think, yeah, you can adapt that and start to see what's on there. So like I said, it's a great baseline to use. You can download that then into a format that's quite nice. So it's putting it in Excel. Really useful for what you need. Let's see what else it's given there. So yeah, it's just saying that, do I want to put it into a summary slide or report? So it's always prompting you for the next step, which I think is really nice. I'll show you something more visual then. So don't worry about this lesson plan on the end. I'm just going to grab this prompt, and I'll grab another file as well. So I've got some data from a survey we ran a while ago. It was when we changed virtual learning environments. That's when it was, 21, 22. I've got some raw data from, let me just find it there. There we go. From a survey. I can't remember what the tool was. It might have been Bristol Online Survey Tool. But anyway, it basically has created a spreadsheet, and I've got Likert scale questions, general comments, all in there. So what I'm going to do is just ask to analyze this in a statistical analysis. I can't even say that, analysis, and see what comes out. So it's going to create hopefully some visuals. So it's got the data there. It's created, it's sort of read the file and generated its own spreadsheet. I don't want that at the moment. It should prompt hopefully our visuals. So it says, okay, we're going to do that. Let's break this down. Okay, so it's going to break it down. And then we should see some images, hopefully, with the questions. I did this before, and it created like bar charts. So I'm hoping it's going to do the same again. There we go. So these were sort of Likert scale questions, I think between 1 and 10, like how effective do you find using Canvas? How easy do you find navigating? Well, how do you find submitting assessments? So they sort of generated the spreadsheet. It's created a table there. Let's see, is there anything else that's going to happen? So what's quite nice is you can maybe do, if I put in here, can you create a thematic analysis of the general comments in the survey? Because at the time, it was probably just as AI was kicking off, we ended up having to pay a student to do this work in terms of do a thematic analysis of the comments, which took them like a good month to go through it and pull it through. So it's pulling out the comments there. Let's see, is it still thinking about it? I think it still is. I'm hoping it is. There we go. Oops, sorry, it's jumped a bit there. Let me come back to the top. So it's pulled the general comments out, and it's creating that thematic analysis, just going through, creating the sub-themes and a couple of quotes. So again, this would have saved a lot of time. That was once a couple of weeks work or even a month work. So can you create this in report style and in Word? I'll just download this, and then I'll I'll move on to the next bit just so we can see what the final product looks like. But yeah, I know a lot of you put in Padlet board as well that you were looking to use AI to help with that sort of sifting through data and trying to pull out the key themes and key areas. So let's see the report on here, which I've not tested out before. So let's see, I'm hoping it comes up with something quite nice. If it loads up. Again, my computer's being a little bit dozy today. There we go. So it's basically grabbed what's been generated already. I'm sure with some better prompt engineering, better prompts, I could have got more detail from that and even got more from the sub themes as well. But you can see there, then I can start tweaking it, and that's with a lot of the stuff that's on there. Right, I won't speak any longer. Rob, are you all right to take over for the next bit? I'll stop sharing and you can do your next parts.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great questions there as well in the chat about, can we use particular thematic analysis frameworks, Braun and Clark and similar? Yeah, absolutely. If you first of all, it will already have an understanding of it, but if you want it to be really clear, you can give it the actual guide that you'd like to follow. So you just let it know what you're framing your research under and the methodology or similar, and it will use that as its approach, which I think is a really useful sort of support, almost like a research assistant. Within the Padlet that we've shared, we are going to include a lot of resources around research with generative AI. So we'll show you a link to that at the end because there's so many tools that work with it. I know some colleagues mentioned SciSpace, Consensus, Scholar GPT. There's a huge range of these sorts of tools in this area. So yeah, have a little look and then explore. I think learning by doing is quite a good use in this case, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, it is. I think the more you use it, the better you get at putting those prompts in. So yeah, like Rob mentioned, we've got a series of links that will help with research specifically, because I think some of you have mentioned again that you're using like Research Rabbit and other tools like this one, which Rob will show you now, which is quite cool.
Yeah, Google Notebook. So this is a really useful tool, completely free, currently in sort of testing as many Google products are. But actually, the nice thing about Google Notebook is on the main page, it will tell you that the data you upload into it is secure. So nothing going into this will be used anywhere else. And the reason that we're demonstrating this is because actually what it is very useful for is citing references in the documents that you are using. So within ChatGPT, if you uploaded a lot of references, it might pick them out quite well, but it wouldn't directly link back to them. If you go to Notebook LM using that link, you add your sources on the left. So in this one, I've got 15 or 14 academic advisor support documents. And this could be anything. It could be web pages. I think it could be video. I'll have to check what else it can do. So if you click add source, actually, it'll tell you, yeah, Google. It works with Google Docs because it's Google. That's the only frustrating thing. So you may need to convert some content to Google resources, but it does work well pasting it in as well. So you could just copy it out. And what we do within this area is we select the sources we want to engage. So I've got my 14 academic advisor support guides. I want to talk to all of them and I want to ask questions. And it gives me an automated summary first, so it tells me about the advisor scheme. This is for medicine students. I can then ask any question of these documents, and what it will do is pull out different things depending on what I've asked and highlight where they are. So I'm going to ask about the structure of the A meetings information. So a very simple prompt there. What it will do is scan through each of them, and it will then source and cite each one. So what I should be able to do is directly link back to that question. There we are. It might take a bit of time, but you can see straight away it's looked at document 1. If I click on that, it takes me to the actual source and where it is within the source. So a common problem within ChatGPT is what's known as the hallucinations, where it responds confidently, but actually it's made a mistake in what it's given you. The more with these technologies that you include the source content, so you sort of ring fence what you're looking for, the more accurate we're generally finding them to be. If you're just asking a general query, often it can make mistakes, but actually if you're giving it the content and it's looking for it, so we're engaging with information in a different way, it's pretty good. So you see from that chat, it's given me immediately the source that I was looking for. That's source 1. Here we are, 48 hours prior to any meeting. I can click on source 2. And that will do there. That's told me here we are, 48 hours. So I can see which document it is. and what's it saying. And yeah, SciSpace, that's great, Catherine. So if you're looking to do it for STEM topics, have a try of SciSpace. Is that with a free sign up, Catherine? I don't know if you're familiar with the sort of the model for subscription for that, but feel free to post it in the chat and everyone have a little explore of that. And yeah, we've just found this really useful for that ability to ask multiple questions of the different sources that we've wanted to work with. So the way that we use this is if we are developing modules and we want to align to a framework and link to the framework so we know exactly where it is we're pulling out different bits. This is a nice way of doing that. It also features this option under the right-hand side studio area, which is, you know, quite, I mean, it's interesting. We're using it in many different ways to explore how useful it is for pedagogic and dialogic feedback. But what it will do is, based on all of your sources, it will create a podcast. And this has created a 28-minute podcast on the 14 academic advisor documents. So it's not going to be anything exciting, but I'll just give you a demonstration of what it sounds like. Ben, if you just give me a thumbs up if you can hear it.
Welcome to this deep dive.
Okay.
Today we're going to be looking at how the University of Liverpool's School of Medicine supports its student doctors.
Now, what you'll find with that is actually you could put any source you like in here and it will create a podcast around it very quickly. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes. The podcast can be anything from 7 to sort of 25 minutes or a bit longer the more you put into it. Yes, a hand went up then. Was that intentional, Julianne, or was that just a thumbs up? If there's a question, please feel free to just, I don't know if you can turn your mic on or let me know. Oh, accidental, no problem. We'll carry on. So yeah, with this podcast, what's really interesting about this is it will give you a different take, if you like, an AI take, but a different critical take on the content that you've uploaded. And as I've said, this can be anything you like. So for example, I at one time put in a timetable just to see if it would genuinely do, you know, anything. So I've got a really boring timetable here. I've added it in, there it is. Here's my audio overview, load the conversation, and you'll see that working in the background. There we are, 5-minute podcast.
All right. So imagine signing up for a graduate level nuclear physics course, right?
2 American voices, always the same voices, so it can get repetitive. You know, there is that idea that once the novelty's worn off, you can get a bit tired of it, but there will be the opportunity in future, we imagine, to change the voices. So actually it makes it a bit more engaging. It's worth trying out just for if you've written a paper or if you've done a lesson plan or whatever you want to get a perspective on, upload it to that and generate this podcast. Have a listen and see if you think it's picked up on the main nuances and the main terms. We think it's pretty good, don't we, Ben? We think it's been used in various ways.
We've seen it used a lot in learning and teaching. So academics are asking students to upload like the reading list or finding articles, trying to interrogate it. The interactive mode is really good, which you can see on the right beta for people to interrogate the podcast. I do find the voices annoying as well, but hopefully we'll see them changed as well. And yeah, we've seen it as a form of assessment. You know, students create the podcast, record themselves interacting with it as well. We've seen a couple of those ideas happening at the moment in, I can't remember what it was now. I think it was biosciences are using it at the moment. So yeah, we'll see what happens with this tool because it's looking more and more advanced each week I see it. So it's going to be cool.
Michael's got a really good use case there, as he said. You know, if you've got a policy or a departmental circular, you know, if you're going into a meeting and you haven't had a chance to read the document, which, let's hands up, many of us have done that, gone in blind, but you can actually listen to a version of it. So you could have the whole thing read out loud, just using the assistive technology tools, or you could have people actually interrogate the content of it so that you've gone in with a bit more of an understanding of the discussion that might come up. So that's a really useful, and it can work having read the document. You might read a policy and think, I'd just like to get a different perspective on this before the meeting. Give that a whirl, load it in, generate the content, and just have a quick listen. And then one more feature within Notebook LM is this new option of mind maps. So for those of you that do like mind maps, and I'm a big fan, it will take your source content and it will generate a mind map which you can then explore. So this is our framework, curriculum framework at Liverpool. I can work through that. These are the key concepts. You know, inclusivity is a key value within there. What it will do is break that down further. I can look at what that means. I can go through each area and it will break it further and further down, just the different ideas, mapping those together. That can then be downloaded as well. So you can also report whether you think it's good or bad, and that will eventually, you know, I think it will give them an idea of what is working and what isn't working without understanding the actual content. So I think that's a really useful addition, mind map, and that's under the middle bit at the bottom, and that will just work on whatever source you put in there again. So click on that. Another thing I was going to show you from Google is the AI Studio area. Now this is a bit, this requires you to go and have a little play, because actually it's getting quite advanced now. This is one of those technologies that we think actually that's impressing me to a degree. And what I'm going to do is just show you a quick demonstration of it. So ignore the sort of user interface looking a bit complicated. It's as simple as really looking at these three areas here. So what I can do with this is talk to my computer and ask for a real-time work through of whatever I'm looking at. So under my share screen option, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that. And as soon as I click on this, it's going to enter me into a conversation with what I'm looking at. So I'm going to look at this and then talk to it, and you should hear back. So Ben, if you give me a thumbs up again, if you can hear what the computer's saying back to me. Let's give it a try. It's failed. It might be because I'm in a call. I'll try one more time. This sometimes happens if we're using our mic and our webcams in different places. Let's see if we can do that again. Okay, what it would do is I would click on that share screen button, and then the computer would say to me, okay, what are you looking at? And then what I could do is go to the Padlet, for example, and say, I'm looking at this Padlet. I want to understand it better. What are the views of the people that have responded? And it would see what I'm seeing. So it would talk me through the names of the people that have responded and what they've said, and it would ask me if I wanted any support in a certain area. So if there's something that you're struggling to do at the minute, it might be anything technical. You're thinking, I need to go to my IT team for help. If you'd like to give that a whirl, it might be a way of actually working more quickly without having to get, further help by email or similar. It will just talk you through what you're doing. It also works with video and with audio. So what we're enjoying about this is, for example, language students that are doing presentations, it can analyze how they're doing. We ask students to work with it by delivering the presentation to the computer and getting feedback on that, and then taking that into the real presentation. So it can be a form of formative assessment help. It can help just with general career skills, everything in that area. For us, Ben, have you given it a whirl? Have you used it for anything?
It was new to me when you showed it to me earlier on this week, or last week. So it looks great. I've not tried it out, but I've got some ideas of how it could be used the same way you were using Copilot earlier with the VLE. I think this is a lot more sophisticated. So yeah, I need to look at this a bit more because it looks really good.
Great. Yeah, I think it's worth having a little play. It's one of those things that actually you just think, oh, where are we going with this technology? If it's doing this already, a lot of data implications if it's looking at what's on your screen. So be wary of what you're doing with it, what you've got open, those sorts of things. But actually, if you're using it securely, it's quite a useful tool for getting that step-by-step guide. And one more thing I was going to show in terms of that step-by-step process. So not so much AI, more just sort of video capture, is something called Scribe, and all of these are on the Padlet, so don't worry if you're missing the names. What that will do is capture anything I do as a process. So let's say I want to show you how to use this. So I've just started recording. Right, I'm going to click on that, share my screen. It will fail because that's fine. I just want to show you the process. And then what you'll see on the right hand side is that it is actually capturing everything I'm doing as different screenshots. So I'm going to stop that. Now, if I can get rid of this, I think it's actually worked that time, which is typical. There we are. It did start working then, but there you can see here now I've got a step-by-step guide. I've clicked there, I've opened that, I've moved on to this page, and then I've clicked there. So every click, every move, if you want to do a step-by-step, you don't need to screenshot each thing and show you. The Scribe add-in, which is free here, how to use a screenshot monitor in AI Studio. You see it's captured everything there. It's got my screen where I've clicked there next, then I've clicked there, and then I'll click there. I can add text to it. I can add different bits of steps in very quickly. So I can very quickly build up a step-by-step process. So that might help you with students if you're telling them how to do a screen recording, for example, or similar. Something that you can consider there. And then I can share that with a link. And what it should do is just very quickly take you to the screen that I've just produced. It will give you a very quick run through. So not a detailed one there, but just an example of how easy and quick that was to do that. Flying through it, but 15 minutes to go. Ben, should we do a bit of multimedia?
Yeah, I'll crack on. Yeah, so I've just got a couple of apps I want to show you, which are a bit more visual than what Rob's showed you, because that looks really good. I've got some Pebble Pad guides I need to do, so I might use that Scribe to do it. In fact, I'll put this in the chat. Sorry, I didn't do so beforehand. I haven't got two screens. I'll do it afterwards. So I've got two tools I just want to show you. One's this one called Gamma. So I don't think it's attributed to Google or Microsoft, but it's a way of being able to generate slides either using AI prompts or if you've got documents already to go on. Maybe it's something you've downloaded from ChatGPT, or you've been given some resources from someone and you need to generate a slide deck to produce a presentation. So I'll use the AI feature. It's free to sign up for. It's in the links that Rob's provided in the one sheet as well. Just be aware you're only given so many credits with the free version, which just means every time you generate a new slide deck, you use up those credits. I think they do renew at the end of the month, so don't feel like once you come to the end, that's it, you need to like create another account. They should renew at the end of the month so you can continue to use them. So there's an AI button, and a lot of these tools nowadays that people are using for education have AI built into them. You know, we've seen that with Quillbot, Mentimeter now, but we'll see here. So you can do a couple of things. You can start from text, import a file, or you can just generate. So I'll do something with a prompt for now. So it's asking me what do I want to create. So it did used to just be presentation, but now they've got all these extra options as well. It's got English US. Let's see if we can change that as well. It asks how many cards, which is just slides. So I'll keep it standard with that. Let's make something. Can you create a slide deck on the history of the Liverpool Grand National Race, which is happening this week? Okay, so what it's doing here is it's creating like the headers and a bit of an overview of what each slide will be. So I'm not a big horse racing fan, so I'm not sure if the knowledge is here. I know most of the things about the fences and such, but I'm not into it in too much detail. So let's generate, see what happens. So this is where your credits end up getting used at this point. We can't edit them here. So, I don't like that font. So you can change all that stuff. And then it's generating those slides. So you can see on the left, the slide deck being generated. Here in the center, it's obviously building it. And I think we asked for 8, didn't we? So what it's doing here is it's using its own database and checking, I think on the same model as ChatGPT, to generate this text. So obviously you'll have to go through and make sure everything's created is correct. So let's have a quick look. Okay, so it's got, I think that's an AI generated image. It looks, well, the skyline's quite true to Liverpool, but I don't know about how clear and nice the green grass is. That looks like AI generated. Go on, sorry.
There's no paddock on the other side, is there? I don't think so.
So yeah, it's using AI to create that. But there we go. We've got like sort of general stuff in here. It's great for an overview. There's no notes at this point, but I can start editing any of the elements on here. And what I tend to do if I'm using them, and I recommend to staff as well, is if they don't like using this interface to edit, is you can download the documents. So it's an export here into PowerPoint. And that way you'll then have the actual PowerPoint file to start changing the format of the text. So if I open that up now, you'll then have full features of PowerPoint. So a lot of things that happen at the university is teaching has to be covered, or one of the sad things that's happening in higher education is there's not enough people to teach. So people are teaching subject areas they're not too familiar with. So they're throwing in the resources that they've inherited or got the baseline knowledge, but they just want to add their own flair to it. And this is quite nice. So it has changed the text there, which I'm quite happy with. But you can see here, I can start using it as I want to. So I won't bore you with the details of that one, but that's Gamma. And then the other tool I want to show you is Napkin, which I only came across this maybe last month. Again, it's in beta, but it's a nice way of creating visuals, as it says there, for text. So I think if it's click sign in, it should let me in. There we go. So if I do a new one, you can use a prompt. on here, there's a couple of options, import a file, start blank, which is using this interface, or the prompts. So let's do the prompts. So let's see, they've got some already here. Best practices for a hiring interview. Sounds quite American, but you can see now it's creating sort of like cards based on what to do. So it's giving me the information, which is fine. I think it's still doing it. But what we want to do is create visuals of these. So there we go. It has created it. And then can you see as I'm highlighting the paragraph text, there's a little button. So if I click that, it starts to generate an image based on this. So again, what a lot of people will do is if they're doing either report writing or lecture slides or anything like that, and they're just struggling for images, you can see here it starts to generate an image based on this. And then on the left-hand side, there's a different styles that I can start to choose. So if I like that one, I can choose that, and then maybe I want to change the color, and it's there. And then if I need to capture it and put it in PowerPoint, you can see there's a download button, and you can choose your file type. I think, is it locked? No, it isn't. So it goes in there, download it, and then it's an image ready to be imported. And you can go in and edit these as well, I think, if I click on it. Is that just sketching? Yeah, you can see there as I'm highlighting it, like any sort of image. I can start changing the text, anything like that. So that's free to use. I don't think there's credits on it, but it's really nice just to create those visuals if you want to make your presentations a bit more sort of poppy and more unique, really quick to create. Right, so we've only got, 8 minutes left. Rob, are you all right to do the last couple of tools? I'll stop sharing again.
I think what we'll do actually is we'll point you to, because I realize we've covered a lot in this, and we could happily spend a day with you if you wanted to join us for this. So apologies if it's been a bit fast, but actually I think the best way is just to see the sort of things that are out there and what you can start to do with them. And really it's about understanding how they might apply to your own context. So we all have different roles, we all have different responsibilities. The tools themselves can be used in different ways depending on what you need to do. Don't always use them. The sustainability angle we've talked about earlier, part of that in our own work is actually considering, can we, for example, use existing stock images? Ben, we mentioned, didn't we, within that presentation, we could actually reduce our carbon footprint by using things that already exist. This today, obviously, I've realized we've been very heavy on their use just to demonstrate what's available. And if you are interested in, the wider picture, the bigger picture, this was a resource within the bigger Padlet that we've linked back to. So this was just a series of workshops we did in the summer for our staff, where we've gone into different areas of accessibility, sustainability, assessment policy. The research board we talked of is here under AI tools for research. Give that a click and you'll see a huge list that a colleague in our ex-JTLU partner university has compiled. And we used it. I mean, this will take a day to go through, but have a little look through that. But really, yeah, with sort of 5 or so minutes to go, if you need to run off, that's fine. But if there's any questions, please let us know in the chat and we'll pick those up now for you.
Yeah, I think there's one in the Q&A section, Rob, from Ina, saying, is AI note-taker assistant like Phantom allowed in your university?
Yes, I thought I did answer that under the comments. So
answer,
we did have colleagues independently using things like Otter AI, which were very good at note-taking, but because they were third party and not institutionally supported, there was a concern about the data control of what was going into that. So meetings, research, things that we didn't want to be published by a third party. That was then limited, which has led us to use Copilot to some degree, or Teams. Teams automates our meetings anyway and gives us the transcript and a recap. And then what we've also done is we build custom GPTs. So those are GPTs that you can build on the premium license, which we have a departmental license for. And some of those include note taking for meetings. So you would upload the transcript and it would generate action points and similar. This one in the background here is a curriculum aligner. So we've given it Strategy 2031 and the curriculum framework. So as Ben showed earlier, rather than having to prompt each time and upload the file, what you can do within the custom GPT is come in and everything is set up using that knowledge and ring fenced. So we just work from that directly. We've used these across a huge range of different cases, as you'll see on the left-hand side. So one of them, for example, is the code of practice on Assessment Explorer. So I might click on that, which leads to a sort of a 1,000-page PGR code of practice policy document. None of us like to look through policy documents, do we? So actually I can ask a very quick question and say, yeah, what are the guidelines for thesis submission? And we can load that with commonly asked FAQs, which is hopefully saving colleagues in the admin team from having to answer the same email hundreds of times. That's something that we're developing and trying to evaluate as we go as well. So thank you for that. Any more questions? Anyone want to have any comments in the chat that we'll pick up? Any sort of final feedback?
I had a question for you guys around the quality control for things. How much time do you feel you have to spend when you get an output from any of these generative AIs, essentially assessing the quality and making sure that the outputs are what you want it to be, that it's not hallucinating, that it's not doing those? Could you talk us through some of that process?
Yeah, sure. Ben, shall I go first? That's all right.
Yeah, go on.
So I would say, first of all, we use the tool as a support tool. It's not a do your job. You know, I don't think we've ever taken something that's come from it and used that. That's the biggest thing. I think everyone knows that, having sort of had a go at it. The quality control is more like having a colleague in the room that you're collaborating with. And let's say you're writing a document together, you know, there's parts you disagree on, there's parts you might put in the track changes. How about this? You either agree with that and you put it in diplomatically, or you don't and you have the conversation. So I think really the quality control firstly depends on what it is we're doing. So we would take the curriculum design and the module design and program design elements of ChatGPT and we'd bring it into a real life workshop. You know, we would never just put that through approval process or similar. It would be a case of looking at what we've got, perhaps reading through it as you would anything else that a colleague's written, so peer evaluation. And I don't think the changes are, you know, significant, but it's more about getting it to be exactly what we want it to be. So often it will be good, but it won't be brilliant and it won't be directly what we want in that context. So we will tweak it, I think, is the best saying to that. Ben, would you agree?
Yeah, it's quite easy as well to want more user. It's very easy to see what has been produced by the AI and what's been human. So I know if I try and pass off any work from here, it just doesn't sound like my natural voice, or it doesn't look like my natural, say, report writing or a job application. And then there's little things you can see, like the way ChatGPT puts those emojis on, or it separates text using line breaks. You can easily find it. But like Rob said, as a team, we normally use it as a baseline and then we expand upon it. Or we build something ourselves and it just needs refinement. Recently, we've got our learning and teaching conference coming up in the summer. So we had this massive amount of text that needed refinement, and we just used ChatGPT to sort of drill it down and highlight the key points, and it was just useful for that type of work. So quality control is difficult, but I think the more you do that sort of peer review, the better, I think, and work together. And like you said, it's just easy to find, spot in the end, the more you use it. Even though it is getting more clever, it still is easy to spot when it has been 100% produced by it.
I think also we, as a department and as a university, but more so the department, we are quite open in our use of it. So we are all using it openly. You know, we've worked with other departments in the university where there's actually a sort of taboo around its use case. And for whatever reason, you know, some reason that's fair. We're talking about critical, you know, skills, over dependence, I think came up in the Padlet. But actually, if everyone is talking about it and how they're using it and talking across the way it's being used, we're getting a better understanding of what it is good at and what perhaps we should, you know, really check up on more when we're using it.
Look, guys, this was really fabulous. We'll have to get you out again to do some more with us, because I think, you know, there is obviously so much more there that we could cover, but this was a fabulous session, really, really informative. I can already see in the chat people saying thank you and whatnot. So we'll wrap up for today, but thank you, Ben and Rob, for this presentation, and for everyone in the audience. We'll be putting a recording out in the coming weeks so that you can come back and visit or share with someone that you think might benefit. So thanks so much, guys.
Brilliant. Thank you for having us. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. I'll speak to you soon. And we are open to doing these types of talks as well elsewhere. So if anyone is interested in that, do reach out. I think our details are on the Padlet, aren't they, Rob? If not, we'll add them on there.
Yeah, we'll share the resources if that's okay, Catherine, including a feedback form just to try and improve it as we go. So yeah, we'll get an email out today if that's okay.
That's perfect. That's great. Thanks so much, guys, and thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks all.
Thanks.